Hello everyone. Today we'll talk about chapter 7. Okay, so in chapter 7 it talk about consumers, producers and efficiency of market. So actually this chapter is part of welfare economics. Now first let's see what we will learn in this chapter. Actually in this chapter we have three questions try to find the answers. The first one could be what is consumer surplus and how does consumer surplus related to demand curve? What is producer surplus and how the producer surplus related to the supply curve. And at the end, we would like to learn, do markets produce a real good outcome or allocation of resources? And could the market outcomes be improved or not? So let's look at how we can solve for those questions. The first concept we need to learn in this chapter will be willingness to pay, okay, WTP. So for willingness to pay, it measures the buyer's willingness to pay for a good will be the maximum amount of money that buyers would like to pay for that good. Okay, so it should be the maximum amount that the buyers would like to pay for that good. That is what we call willingness to pay. So willingness to pay measures how much the buyer values that good. Okay. I will give you the example here. So you can see there are four persons here, right? And then it shows the willingness to pay of those four persons to an Apple Watch. So for example, for Anthony, his willingness to pay for an Apple Watch will be $250, which means the maximum amount that Anthony would like to pay for an Apple Watch is $250. For Chad, he only like to pay maybe $175. For Flea, his willingness to pay will be $300 for an Apple Watch. And for John, his willingness to pay for an Apple Watch was just $125. So you can see willingness to pay varies according to different persons, right? People have their different valuations of a product. So let's see how this willingness to pay can be related to a demand curve. So let's see, the question here will be, if now the market price of an Apple Watch is $200, who will buy an Apple Watch and what quantity will be demanded? So that could be the question. Now assume the market price for an Apple Watch is $200. Who would like to buy? Do you think Anthony will buy? Of course he will buy because his willingness to pay will be $250, right? Now the market price is just 200, so he would like to pay for an Apple Watch at $200. How about Chad? Do you think Chad would like to pay for an Apple Watch when the market price is $200? No, because the maximum amount you would like to pay for an Apple Watch is $175, right? But now the market price is 200. Therefore, Chad would not to pay for an Apple Watch if the market price is $200. How about Flea? Of course, Flea will buy the Apple Watch because his willingness to pay is $300, right? And now the market price is $200. Therefore, Flea would buy an Apple Watch, and John would definitely not. He will not buy the Apple Watch if the market price is $200, right? So based on this, we can say Anthony and Flea will buy an Apple Watch, Chad and John would not. So here we have a quantity demanded will equal to when the market price equal $200, right? So based on this, actually we can create a demand schedule. The demand schedule here will be, we'll let you say, okay, if the market price of an Apple Watch is above $300, then nobody will buy it. So the quantity demand for the Apple Watch, if the price is more than $300, will be zero, right? And if the price of Apple Watch lies between $251 to $300, then we know Flea would definitely buy it, okay? So the quantity demand when the Apple Watch's price lies between $251 to $300 will be 1, right? And now if the price lies between 176 to 250, then we know Anthony and Flea would definitely buy it, right? So now the quantity demand would increase to 2 units. So etc. Okay, so once the price of an Apple Watch lies between 125 to 175, then 3% will buy an Apple Watch. So the quantity demand of an Apple Watch in this price range will be 3 units, and etc. If the Apple Watch price below $125, then now 4 of these persons will buy it, right? So the quantity demand will increase to 4 units. Then based on this, we have the price range, we have the quantity demand, then we can derive for a demand curve, right? So let's see. For a demand curve, you can see if the price above $300, then no one will buy it, okay? So now we have the demand curve showing on the vertical axis, okay? And then if the price lies between 251 to 300, 1% will buy it, right? We know Flea will buy it. And then once it goes down, we notice Anthony and Flea will buy it, right? And as the price goes down, there are more people will not afford. More people would like to buy an Apple Watch, right? So you can see our demand curve in this case, in this special case, okay, would be a staircase shape, right? So you can see this is our demand curve. And you might feel a little bit confused. Why this demand curve is not like a straight line, downward sloping straight line? So here, what about why the demand curve now become a staircase shape? So here I will give you some reasons. The first one will be the demand curve now showing how much you can see here, show much looks like a staircase, right? And then it tells you that there are 1 person will buy each unit, right? 1 person will buy 1 unit. So if there are a huge number of the buyers, is in the competitive market. Okay, if there are a lot of buyers, not only 4 buyers, here we just assume there are only 4 buyers, right? So if there are a huge number of the buyers in the market, then we would like to say there could be a huge number of the teeny step, huge number of the teeny step, and which will make our demand curve now looks like a smooth downward sloping demand curve as what we learned before. So you can see here at any quantity, okay, at any quantity, let's go back to this staircase demand curve, okay, so you can see at any quantity, the height of the demand curve, the height, okay, the height of the demand curve actually measures the willingness to pay of the marginal buyer. What does it mean, the marginal buyer? So marginal buyer is the buyer who would leave the market. Sorry, who would leave the market if the price would a little bit higher. So you can look at the height when the quantity equal 1. So when quantity equal 1 in this staircase demand curve, you can see the price is $300. So $300 is the margin. Who is the marginal buyer? Flea is the marginal buyer, right? Because he will leave the market if the price just change a little bit higher. So we can see here $300 here measures Flea's willingness to pay because Flea is the marginal buyer when the price is $300, right? And you can see when quantity increase to 2, you can also see the height of the demand curve, right? The height of the demand curve decreased to 250. So who is the marginal buyer? Anthony is the marginal buyer, right? So you can see Anthony's willingness to pay is $250. And you can see when quantity increased to 3 units, you can also measure the height of their demand curve, which will equal $175. So $175 is who's willingness to pay? Chat, right? Chat willingness to pay. So we would like to say when a quantity increase to 3 units, chat is the marginal buyer because if the price change a little bit higher, then chat would leave the market, right? So $175, the height here matches chat's willingness to pay. And then similar, when a quantity equal 4 units, you can get a height, right? Now the height decrease to $125. Therefore, $125. Who is the marginal buyer? John is the marginal buyer, right? So this $125, the height here also measures John's willingness to pay for an Apple Watch. Okay, so after we talk about willingness to pay, then we can move on to talk about consumer surplus. So consumer surplus is not a very hard concept, okay? It's actually pretty straightforward. So consumer surplus is the amount that buyers willing to pay minus the amount that buyers actually pay. So what does it mean? Consumer surplus, you will use buyers' willingness to pay subtract actual pay. And what is the actual pay? The actual pay is the market price. So this is the way for us to compute consumers' surplus. Still go back to this table, okay? Then we will say now the market price is $250, $260, sorry. Now the market price is $260. First, you need to figure out. So the market price equal $260. Then you need to figure out who will buy the Apple Watch if the market price is $260. Only three will buy it, right? Only three buys one unit, right? And so we can also compute the consumer surplus for Flea. We will use his willingness to pay, subtract the market price. His willingness to pay for this Apple Watch is $300, right? Subtract $260 as the market price, then we can get the consumer surplus for Flea will be equal $40, okay? And as this market now only has four buyers, we can say this consumer surplus is also the market consumer surplus. So first, we would like to say Flea's willingness to pay will be $300, subtract the price $260, we have the consumer's surplus equal $40. And now the others will have no consumer surplus because they will not purchase an Apple Watch if the market price is $260, right? So actually from this part, consumer surplus is pretty straightforward. Use willingness to pay, subtract market price. Okay, so we say the total consumer surplus equal $40. Then how we can show the consumer surplus through the graph. Look at this graph. What you need to do is you can draw a horizontal line when the market price equal 260. Okay, just draw a horizontal line and then across this demand curve. Okay, then you can get actually this area. Okay, this area, this rectangle here measures Flea's willingness to pay. Okay, so the total consumer surplus equal $40. Now let's see. If now the market price decreased to $222, then what happens? If the market price now equal $220, so first you need to figure out who will purchase. Who will purchase? Not only Flea will buy it, right? Anthony will also buy it. So I will say Flea and Anthony buy, okay? Or buy an Apple Watch. So we can still get a consumer surplus for Flea will equal willingness to pay subtract the market price. Now the willingness to pay still $300, but now the market price decreased to 220. Therefore, Flea's consumer surplus will equal $80, right? You can get consumers willingness to pay also for Anthony. I will just put A here, okay, represents for Anthony. You're equal to willingness to pay subtract the market price. So similar, willingness to pay is $250, right? And subtract the market price, which will give you the consumer surplus for Anthony. Then you can also get the total consumer surplus, right? So the total consumer surplus, you need to sum these two persons, and then you can get the total consumer surplus will equal $80 plus $30. Okay, so here you can get the total consumer surplus equal 110. So you can also show this 110 through graph. Okay, so similar. If the market price decreased to $220, remember to draw a horizontal line across this demand curve. Okay, then this this rectangle here measures fleece consumer surplus. Okay, and then for Anthony, he will also buy an Apple Watch, right? Therefore, you can see this small rectangle here measures Anthony's willingness to pay. So the total consumer surplus here will be this shape, okay, will be this area, and then it equal $110. Okay? So based on what we just talked about, you might notice actually the total consumer surplus equals the area, okay, equals the area under the demand curve but above the market price. Make sense or not? So go back to check when the market price is $260. This area, okay, this area measures fleet's willingness to pay, and it is also the total consumer surplus, right? It is just the area below the demand curve and above the market price, right? Then, when the market price decreased to $220, we still can use the area below the demand curve but above the market price to measure total consumer surplus, right? So here we will give you the summary, okay? The total surplus actually is just the area below the demand curve and above the market price. And how about our normal consumer surplus? How about the consumer surplus under our normal demand curve? I should say that. So let's see. In this graph, so in this graph, let's see, we have the price here, right? We have the quantity here, and then we also have the demand curve. So this is a very normal demand curve, okay? Downward sloping demand curve. Similar, okay? If I ask you how to compute a demand curve if the market price is at P1, then how can you do that? What you need to do is please draw a horizontal line across this graph. Then you will have one point across the demand curve, right? From this one, you can get, if the market price now equals $30, okay, in our case, in this example, okay, $30, and then we have the quantity equal 15. So here is, I'll write down things here, $30, okay? How can you compute the total consumer surplus based on this graph? Remember, we just talked about consumer surplus should be the area below the demand curve, right? Below the demand curve and above the market price. So it should be this. It should be this area, right? This area actually measures the total consumer surplus. The total consumer surplus. And then you know this area is just a triangle, right? So how you can compute this triangle area? We also have the price here equal to 60, right? So how do you get the area of a triangle? So we get area of triangle will equal 1/2, right? Half times base times height, right? And in this case, Can you tell me what's the base? The base will be 15, right? The base will be 15. And then what about the height? This is the height, right? So this is the height will equal $60 subtract $30. So finally we'll have half times 15 times 30, which will equal $225. Okay, so this is the way that we can compute total surplus. Sorry, not total surplus, total consumer surplus. It should be the area below, this demand curve and above the market price. Okay, it should be this triangle here. So you can see consumer surplus is the area below below the demand curve, okay, and above the market price. And then here we can compute the area of the triangle, right? Your equal base times height. So therefore we can get height here equal $30, right? As I mentioned here, $30 is the height, right? And then we have the base equal 15. Therefore, we can get the total consumer surplus for equal $225. So this is the way that we can compute for total consumer surplus if we have the normal demand curve. Okay. So if price become higher, then what will happens? If price become higher in this case, what will happens? We know if the price become higher in this case, if the price maybe increased to, let's see, if the price increased to $40, then what will happen? This is the $40. If price increased to $40, then what will happen? So first, you need to know, please draw a horizontal line across this $40, okay? Then you can get 1 point. You can get 1 point on this demand curve. So from this demand curve, we will get a quantity here equal 10 units, okay? So what's the new total surplus, total consumer surplus? What's the new total consumer surplus based on this new market price? So I would like to say, if now the market price equal $40, we have the quantity demand equal 10 units, right? Which area measures the total surplus? It should be the area below this demand curve and above the market price, right? Therefore, this small triangle here measures, let me see, let me use another pen. Okay, so it should be the area below this demand curve but above the market price, right? So you can see now this small triangle here will measures the total surplus. This area here, okay, measures the total surplus if the market price increased to $40. So similar, okay, you can compute the total surplus, the total consumer surplus. So total consumer surplus here will equal still this area, okay? You will have half times the base is 10, okay? And then times the height. The height will use $60 subtract $40, right? So here we will have half times 10 times 20, which will equal $100, right? Okay, so if now the market surplus, total consumer surplus equal $100, then I would like to say, what's the change? What's the change in consumer surplus compared with the original price is $30, but now the price increased to $40. You would like to know that originally we computed total consumer surplus equal $225, right? Now the new consumer surplus is $100. Therefore, we will have the change in consumer surplus is $125, right? And $125 is actually this area. It's actually this area, right? It's actually this area. And my question here is, even you know the consumer surplus changed by $125, but you need to dig a little bit more about what are the two reasons result in this change. What are the two reasons result in this change? So we can divide this $125 in this graph into two parts, okay? One part will be here. So look at this. Look at this rectangular, okay? What does this rectangular mean? So this rectangular, I just color this part, okay? So this rectangular actually measures for the people or for the buyers who still purchase this product, you need to pay higher price, right? So we would like to say here we divide it into two parts, okay? One part, I would say the part one, okay, is just the rectangular here is for the person who still buy the product, okay, who still buy this product, who still buy this product. He need to pay higher price, so it shows the decrease of the consumer surplus. So the consumer surplus for the person who still buy this product would decrease. Make sense or not? For the person who still purchased this product, okay, he need to pay $40 rather than $30, right? So the consumer surplus would decrease. And then can you tell me what's this part? How much of this part is a rectangular, right? So we need to compute. We can compute the area, which will equal $40 subtract $30 times 10 to get the area, right? So this part will equal $100, right? Therefore, you can see for this part, the person who still purchase this product, he need to pay higher price. Therefore, for for those person, okay, the total consumer surplus will decrease by $100. There's still some person because now the market price become higher, they choose to leave the market. They choose to leave the market. For the person, this is what we call a part two, okay? So for the person, this is our part two. Part one measures this rectangular, right? And then for part two, you can see part two measures the person who will not buy this product anymore because the price become higher, okay? So I like to say for part two, this small this small triangular here measures the person or the consumer. For the consumer who, for the consumers who leave the market, okay? For the consumers who leave the markets, you can also get their consumer surplus decrease, right? So consumer surplus also decrease, and you can get the area of this small triangle, right? It will equal half times the height, okay? the height here will equal 40 subtract 30. And then times the base. The base will be 15 subtract 10, okay? So for this part, the consumer surplus will also decrease because of these type of the consumers, they will just leave the market. And it will equal $25. You'll equal $25. So you can see from part one and part two, you can also sum these two parts, okay? So the part one, we have the consumer surplus for the current consumers who still buy the products. Their consumer surplus decreased by $100. For the consumers who leave the market, their consumer surplus decreased by $25, right? You use $100 plus $25, you can still get this part you plus, okay? You can still get the total consumer surplus decreased by $125, which is exactly what we just compute, right? So from here, we figure out the reasons why this consumer surplus will decrease, including two parts, okay? For part one, is just for the consumers who still in the market, okay? And then for part two, it measures the consumer surplus decrease based on a person or based on the consumer who leave the market. Understand? All right, now let's continue to see what we will talk about in what on the slides, okay? So in the slides, I would like to say now the consumer is what the consumer surplus, okay? When the market price is $40 is what I just compute, okay? Equal $100. And then there are two reasons behind the decrease in consumer surplus I just analyzed as well, okay? So one will be decrease in consumer surplus based on the buyers who leave the market. And also for some person who still buy the products, but they need to pay higher price, okay? So these two parts summed together, also we can get the changes in consumer surplus equal $125. Okay, so let's look at one practice question. In this practice question, it gives you the demand curve, right? The first one, please find the marginal buyers please find the marginal buyer's willingness to pay when a quantity equal 10. So how can you do that? Do you still remember when we talk about marginal buyer's willingness to pay? It measures the height when the quantity, when the market quantity equal maybe 10 units, right? So let's see how to solve for this question. Let me draw the graph first. This is the price. This is the quantity, okay? And then this is 40. Oh, sorry, no, this is demand curve, not 40, sorry. This is the demand curve. Okay, this is the demand curve. And now the market price, this is the highest market price is $40, okay? And it says, please find out a marginal buyer's willingness to pay when quantity equal 10. So what you need to do, assume this is 10, okay? What you need to do, please draw a vertical line. Just draw a vertical line. Okay? Just draw a vertical line across this demand curve. Across this demand curve, then you can find one point. And from this point, you can check the market price. From this point, check the market price will equal $30. Okay, so $30 will be the marginal buyer's willingness to pay when quantity equal 10. Now, from this part, we solve for the first question. Okay, remember to draw a vertical line across the quantity equal 10. Now let's look at the second question. Please find a consumer surplus when the price equals $30. So similar, okay? Price, quantity. This is 40, and this is the demand curve. I just put a D here. And I put a demand, I think it's better. Demand curve. And now please find out the price equal 30's consumer surplus. So this is $30. And what you need to do, draw a horizontal line. Draw a horizontal line and then find out one intersection point, right? From this intersection point, you can get the quantity or equal 10. And which area measures the consumer surplus? As we talk about consumer surplus should be the area below the demand curve, right? And above the market price. So it should be this triangle here, okay? So how to compute this triangle? First, you need to get a height, right? So you get a height, and then you get a base. I can treat this one as base, and this is the height. Okay, so I can see the consumer surplus here will equal half times base times height, right? So you use half times base will equal 10. And then what about a height here? 40 subtract 30. So totally, we'll get a consumer surplus times 10 times 10 equal $50. Okay, so you can get the consumer surplus equal $50. Understand? Now let's see. Suppose now the price decreased to $20. Then please compute how much will consumer surplus increase due to buyers who enter the market or the existing buyers who now can pay the lower price. Okay, so let's see how to solve for this question. This type of a question actually very important. Okay, it might appears in the practice questions, the quizzes questions, or the homework assignments question. Okay, so let me solve for this question with you together. $40. Originally, the market price is $30, right? And I already asked you, please draw a horizontal line across this demand graph, and you can find out the intersection point here, give you a quantity demand equal 10 units, right? And now it says the market price decreased to $20. Similar, okay? If the market price decreased to $20, you still draw a horizontal line across the whole demand graph, and you can find out the intersection point on the demand curve. And then this one will give you the quantity demand equal 20. Okay, so we notice once the price decreased to $20, actually we can get the new consumer surplus, right? And which area measures the new consumer surplus? It should be the area below the demand curve and above the market price, right? So now this big triangle here measures the total consumer surplus, right? This big triangle here, okay? And you can see compare with the original one, we have now two parts increased, right? I'll mark one as this is part one. For the existing buyers, now they can pay lower price, okay? So which will be this area. Because originally when market price is $30, only 10 units will be consumed, right? So for the existing buyers now they can pay lower price, right? So this will be the consumer surplus increased due to the price change for the current or for existing buyers. There are also some buyers, they might entering the markets, right? Because now the market price decreased, they will find this market now is attractive. The market price is attractive. So they decided to enter the market to buy the product. Therefore, this triangle here measures for the new consumers who enter the markets because of their lower market price. Make sense or not here? Okay, so here we can solve for the questions. So for question C, okay, for question C, you would like to find out the buyers who enter the markets, which was just this rectangle, which was just this triangle we talk about, right? So when we mark this one is 2. Okay, so for part 2, for the part 2, how to get part two's area? The area will equal 1 time half, right? Sorry, times base times height, which will just equal half times the base. We'll be using the 20 units subtract 10 units to get a base, right? And then how about the height? The height will be equal $30 subtract $20. So here we can get the area will equal 50. Okay, so this $50 actually increased the consumer surplus because of the new buyers enter the markets. Originally, only 10 units will be consumed, but now because of there are more buyers who would like to buy the products, then we can notice there are new buyers who enter the markets and increase the units sold by 10 units. Okay, so this will be the new demand quantity. Okay, new demand quantity, and this part measures the buyers who enter the markets and then bring their new consumer bring the new consumer surplus changes. Okay, and then for part D, what does part D want? So part D here, I'll say D here. Okay, so D here would like to say for the existing buyers. Okay, for the existing buyers, they now can pay lower price, right? So actually this is our part 1. Say this is, so this is the area for the existing buyers. You can see now they can pay lower price, right? They can pay lower price. Therefore, their consumer surplus also increases. Okay, so this is our part 1. This is our part 1. Can you see the part 1 here clearly? Probably not. I'm not sure. I can mark it clear. Okay, but this is the part 1. So how to get the part 1's area? So the area here, because it's the rectangular, okay? So it just equal 30 subtract $20 here times 10. So this part equal 100, okay? So you can easily to get the consumer surplus increase based on the lower price that existing buyers can enjoy, okay? So therefore you can get this is the answers for those 4 questions, okay? And you can see when the price decreased to $20, for the additional buyers entering the markets, we will get the new consumer surplus can increase by $50. And for the existing consumers, they can enjoy lower price, therefore the consumer surplus can increase by $100. Okay? So from here, okay, so based on what we talk about, we finish consumer surplus. Then we'll move on to the second part of this chapter, talking about producer surplus. So for producer surplus, it will related to demand curve. Oh, sorry, it will related to supply curve. And we will talk about the producer surplus in the next lecture slides.